The console war between Sony PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox Series X is heating up. Each company is looking to drive more sales and become the ultimate game console provider. While the console war is not a new thing, the term only gained popularity in the early 1980s and 1990s, when the gaming industry was being dominated by Nintendo. Nintendo Entertainment System was by far the most popular gaming console in the world. With family-friendly games and the iconic plumber with a mustache as the mascot, Nintendo controlled the majority of the industry and very few stood a chance against them. This was when the underdog stepped in. SEGA! Through multiple attempts to break into the gaming industry, SEGA was able to shake up the world and knock Nintendo off of their throne. In the early 90s, Nintendo had a 94% market capital of the $3 billion gaming industry. But by the end of the decade, it was not Nintendo, but SEGA that had the majority share. If we look at SEGA today, it is a shadow of its former self. The company which revolutionized the console industry no longer makes home consoles. What caused the downfall of such a gaming empire, and where is it headed? If you don't know the answers, stay tuned as we go through the rise, fall, and rebirth of SEGA. What was the first console you owned? Comment the answer below. Origin and arcade success. The year is 1940. The war is raging. The morale of the army was low. One idea to change that led to the formation of Standard Games. Formed in Honolulu, Hawaii, Standard Games was tasked to provide coin-operated amusement machines to the military forces to keep the troops entertained. But then in 1945, the war ended and the founders of Standard Games sold off the company, which switched its name to Service Games. 1952, after the United States outlawed slot machines in its territories, and that's when Service Games moved its operations to Japan. Fun fact, the name SEGA was first used in 1954 on a slot machine named Diamond Star. During this time, Service Games crossed paths with David Rosen, who launched a photo booth business in Japan under the name of Rosen Enterprises in 1957. In 1965, Service Games acquired Rosen Enterprises. David Rosen was installed as the CEO, and from it, a newly formed company surfaced with the name SEGA. Later, SEGA manufactured its first electromechanical game called the Periscope. It was considered innovative and was successful in Japan. Later, it became a global sensation, which led to the technological renaissance in the arcade industry. Benefiting from the arcade video game boom of the late 1970s, early video games of SEGA were a huge success. Ranging from Pongtron 1973, Goal Kick 1974, Bullet Mark 1975, and Bomber 1976. SEGA raked in a revenue of $100 million by 1979. What does a company do after it earns $100 million? Expand, of course, and SEGA acquired Gremlin Industries, the manufacturer of microprocessor-based arcade games, and Esco Bueki, a coin-op distributor owned by Hayao Nakayama. Later, Nakayama was placed in a management role of SEGA's Japanese operations. Following up with the release of Head On, SEGA licensed Frogger, and in 1982, SEGA introduced the first game with isometric graphics, Zaxxon. Entry into the game console market. As 1982 came rolling around following the downturn in arcade business, SEGA took a huge loss. With its arcade business in decline, President Nakayama of SEGA Japan advocated for home consoles to be brought to the market. This led to SEGA using its hardware capabilities to develop SG-1000 alongside SG-3000. It was released in 1983, the same day when Nintendo released Famicom in Japan. Famicom was later known as NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, when it came to America in 1985. In the first round, SG-1000 sold 160,000 units in the first year, which exceeded their production of 50,000 units. But even with that result, it was soon outpaced by Famicom due to Famicom being a better system with a bigger library of games, due to the courting of third-party developers. To counter the Famicom, SEGA released the SEGA Mark III with its own mascot Alex Kidd to rival Mario. And in the hope of getting market share back from Nintendo, the console was later named SEGA Master System on worldwide release. The results of the launch were rather interesting. In Japan, NES outsold Master System 11-1. In North America, it was outsold 17-1. NES won in most of the markets. However, there were 3 markets where Master System dominated. In Brazil, Sega maintained a share of 90%, while in South Korea and Europe, Sega outpaced NES 2-1. Despite Master System being the console with better hardware and with iconic games, Sega required a new marketing strategy. Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega released the successor to the Master System, the Mega Drive, in Japan on October 29, 1988. But the launch was overshadowed by Super Mario Bros. 3, which launched a week earlier. This is where Michael Katz came in. He knew that in order to defeat Nintendo, they had to focus on the West and immediately got to work rebranding. Mega Drive was now Sega Genesis for the launch in North America, and Katz spearheaded the console war against Nintendo with the legendary marketing campaign of
16-bit arcade hits. What Nintendo?
Genesis left an impression of a cooler and more grown-up version of Nintendo that resonated with the youth. Katz also pushed hard for celebrities in the games, and this led to Michael Jackson's Moonwalker and Joe Montana football. But to truly take the market away from Nintendo, Sega had to come up with a mascot that could rival Mario. The task was assigned to Naoto Oshima, who came up with this guy, Sonic the Hedgehog. Compared to the family-friendly plumber, Sonic was fast and had an action-oriented game that was preferred by the Americans. And this was where Tom Kalinske came in. Tom, who was already credited for the revival of Barbie and Hot Wheels brands, led him to being promoted to CEO of Mattel. It was quite obvious that he understood what made a toy line successful. He developed a 4-point plan. Number 1. Cutting down the price from $189.99 to $149.99. Number 2. U.S. development team will create games targeted at the American market. Number 3. Expand aggressive marketing campaigns. Number 4. And replace bundled game Altered Beast with Sonic the Hedgehog. The Japanese board of directors disapproved, but surprisingly, it was approved by Nakayama, who told Tom Kalinske, "I hired you to make the decisions for Europe and Americans, so go ahead and do it." Then the day arrived when Sonic the Hedgehog was released on 23 June 1991. And to everyone's surprise, it was a massive success. Mainly because of the aggressive marketing campaign led by Tom that painted Sonic as an edgy mascot.
Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
The game had reportedly sold 15 million copies. Due to the popularity of Sonic, Genesis outsold its main competitor, the SNES, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in the US by 2-to-1 ratio during the 1991 holiday season. By 1992, Sega controlled 65% of the gaming console market, selling more than 30 million units. The fall of Sega. Sega CD. A rising trend on the market was the CD, and Sega wanted to join in on the trend, which led to the release of the Sega CD in 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America, with retail price of $299 US. It was a CD-ROM add-on for the Genesis that could play games through which you could see movies. Popular titles were Sewer Shark and Night Trap. The add-on did well at first, but the trend died off fast, and the focus of developers shifted towards Sega Saturn console, which led to the demise of Sega CD. 32X. With the 16-bit consoles, Nintendo and Sega had a huge success. But with the success came pressure of bringing something new in the market. The pressure only heated up in 1993 when Atari launched Jaguar, with a marketing campaign boasting 64 bits capability. Although the console was not a success, it was in fact more powerful than SNES and Sega Genesis. Sega of Japan took this seriously, but the same could not have been said for the Sega of America. Nakayama wanted a 32-bit cartridge-based system out in time for the holiday season in 1994. Tom did not like the idea because Genesis was selling well in America and there was no need for the new console. After some debate, it was decided that Sega of America will develop the 32-bit add-on, while Japan will provide any additional resources. The deadline was set for the holiday season of 1994. Meanwhile, Sega of Japan started working on Sega Saturn, a 32-bit console unbeknownst to Sega of America. Within such a short time, Sega of America rushed to create a new add-on. The end result was a mushroom-shaped hardware that inserts into the Genesis cartridge slot, transforming the 16-bit Genesis into a 32-bit Genesis. With a multi-million-dollar ad campaign to promote the product, fans were optimistic for the product while the insiders had their doubts. Then came the shocking news of Sega Saturn being launched, which led to the question: if Sega already had a 32-bit console system in the work, what was the purpose of the 32-bit add-on? Despite that nagging question, 32X did have a successful launch on November 21, 1994, with a price of $160. According to some reports, 600,000 units were sold. But the hype died quickly because there were only 3 titles that were available at the launch of 32X: Doom, Star Wars Arcade, and Virtual Racing. Many of them were rushed, and it showed. Doom had some levels missing, and Cosmic Carnage was so bad that Sega did not want to ship it out, which led to the sharp decrease in sales. By 1995, the price dropped from $160 to $99, and finally to the clearance price of $19.95. The failed collaboration. Silicon Graphics. While Tom Kalinske was looking for a way to improve Sega Saturn hardware, Sega executives met the founder of Silicon Graphics, Jim Clark. He pitched a new chipset that was better at speed, graphics, audio. Miller and Tom were impressed by the chipset and brought the idea of collaboration with Silicon Graphics to Hideki Sato, who declined the idea as he said, the chip was too big and wasted too much silicon. After being turned down by Sega, Silicon Graphics formed a partnership with Nintendo that resulted in the legendary N64 console. Sony PlayStation. Sony tried to team up with Nintendo, but Nintendo was reluctant to make this decision because it would mean that some control is given to Sony. Hence, at the last minute, they teamed up with Philips behind Sony's back. That led to an infamous and embarrassing use of Nintendo characters on Philips' CDI console. Sega also had a chance to team up with Sony. When president of Sony Electronic Publishing, Olafur Olafsson, and president of Sony America, Mickey Shuloff, met Tom Kalinske, they said, "Tom, we really don't like Nintendo. You don't like Nintendo. We have this little studio down in Santa Monica working on video games. We don't know what to do with it. We'd like Sega's help in training our guys, and we think that the optical disc will be the best format." The idea was then pitched to Ken Kutaragi of Sony of Japan, the man behind Sony's PlayStation project. He said that it was great, and as we all lose money on hardware, let's jointly market a single system, the Sega Sony hardware system, and whatever loss that we make, we split that loss. There was one final roadblock. When the idea was pitched to Sega of Japan, they turned it down. They said, "That's a stupid idea. Sony doesn't know how to make hardware. They don't know how to make software either. Why would we want to do this?" After rejection from both sides, Sony decided to go solo. They released Sony PlayStation in 1994 and went on to sell more than 100 million units worldwide. Surprise launch of Sega Saturn. On November 22, 1994, Sega released Saturn in Japan. Initial sales were good. Sega sold 500,000 units in the first month. Popularity of the launch title, Virtual Fighter, played a huge role in generating those sales. The North American launch was set for September of 1995, with a massive $50 million marketing campaign prepared for Sega Saturn. Meanwhile, Sony PlayStation was outselling Sega Saturn in Japan. Nakayama then ordered Sega America to launch the system in May, 4 months ahead of schedule. Tom knew that a surprise launch could jeopardize the system's success in North America, but despite his warnings, Nakayama did not budge from his decision. On May 11, 1995, at the Electronic Entertainment Expo E3 in Los Angeles, Tom previewed Sega Saturn and several game titles. and that Sega had shipped 30,000 Saturn to Toys R Us, Babbage's, Electronics Boutique, and Software Inc. The price was $399. At the next presentation, Sony delivered one of the most iconic and savage moments in video game history. Steve Race, president of Sony Computer Entertainment of America, had prepared a brief presentation. He went up on the stage, he ditched it. Race went to podium and uttered one word.
$299.
And the price was heard around the world. Many consumers were not ready to buy the Saturn, as the promise of 20 launch titles shrunk down to 6. Even the third-party developers had a tough time. Saturn was released without any third-party title. It was also notoriously difficult to program games for the system. Even Yu Suzuki, Sega's own game designer, said, "I think that only 1 out of 100 programmers are good enough to properly program the Saturn." With all this, Saturn's 4-month head start could only result in 80,000 units sold. When Sony launched its PlayStation in September of 1995, it sold 100,000 units in 2 days. By the time Nintendo 64 came into the US in 1996, the sales of the Saturn had already fallen sharply. Tom Kalinske left Sega on 30th September of that year, and by 1997, PlayStation had outsold Saturn by 3-to-1 ratio in the US. In 1997, Bernie Stolar became the president of Sega of America. He stated at E3 1997, "The Saturn is not our future." He wanted to focus on a new console. By August of 1997, Sony controlled 47% of the console market, Nintendo controlled 40%, and Sega controlled only 12%. Neither price cuts or high-profile games were going to help Saturn. In 1998, Saturn was discontinued, and Sega of Japan president Hayao Nakayama left the company. Sega Dreamcast. It was launched on November 27, 1998 in Japan, September 9, 1999 in America. It had 18 launch titles to choose from, like Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur with online capabilities. It was ahead of its time and was a very popular hit in America. Dreamcast sold 1 million units in America in about 2.5 months, which outpaced Sony PlayStation and set new records. But was defeated by a console that could play DVDs. The console I am talking about is the PlayStation 2. PS2 sold more than 500,000 units on its first day in October 2000, completely annihilating the competition. With total sales reaching 155 million units worldwide by the end of 2003, PS2 became the best-selling console of all time, while Dreamcast only sold just over 9 million units worldwide in a short lifespan of around 2 years. Microsoft and Sega. In 1998, Microsoft sent a team of executives down to Sega and offered collaboration. This could have resulted in the optimized version of Microsoft Windows CE operating system with integrated DirectX services for the use of Dreamcast. But Sega, sticking to their decision, declined the offer and missed out on yet another console, the Xbox. Rebirth of Sega, third-party software development. Putting an end to 20 years of console development, the mission was to focus on software development as a third-party developer. That could lead Sega to thrive and potentially reach more heights than they had in the past. Isa Okawa, the chairman of Sega of Japan in 2000, advocated that Sega abandon the console business. Others shared the same views. For the Xbox, third-party support came from Sega. Sega released exclusives such as Panzer Dragoon Orta and the iconic Jet Set Radio Future, which surpassed 1 million copies worldwide. In the following years, Sega developed various franchises of games for other consoles, ranging from Alien Isolation, Bayonetta 2014, and Yakuza franchise. And something that would blow the mind of players from the 90s. Sega went and collaborated with Nintendo to develop the Sonic and Mario Olympic franchise, as well as letting them access the Blue Hedgehog for the Super Smash Bros. Sega is in a good place right now, as Sega has been publishing classic games for the new consoles and releasing Sega Genesis Mini, a remake of the classic console. With the release of the live-action movie in 2020, it was brilliant and has a sequel already in works. Now, what does the future have in store for Sega? Well, for a company which exchanged punches with Nintendo, was too innovative for its own good, and turned into a third-party software development company, the future is nothing but unpredictable. But one thing is for sure, we have not seen the last of Sega. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be the first to be notified of new behind-the-business videos we post every week. Since you made it all the way to this point, here are 2 more videos that we know you're going to love. Go on, click on it. You know you want to.